Powerful insights often occur when you least expect them. On Transformative Leadership Conversations, they're at the heart of every episode. Hi, I'm your host, Winnie da Silva. In this season, I'm sharing short, focused, and practical leadership ideas and insights, myths worth challenging, and tools you can immediately apply to strengthen your leadership and build more effective teams. So today's leadership topic is trust. It's the essential ingredient in all of our relationships, including, of course, your relationships at work. But how much time and energy do you actually put into proactively and intentionally building trust with the people you work with every day? Well, I think our instincts tell us that trust will eventually develop naturally over time. But in our fast-paced, complex, and ever-changing work environment, it's really easy now for our relationships to become transactional. Time, we all know, is at a premium. Even if we want to build trusting relationships, this can really very easily get knocked down the priority list without even realizing it. And yet, trust is absolutely essential to being an effective and impactful leader. Think about a work relationship in your career where trust really broke down. Or when have you seen this happen between two other people at work? What kind of impact did it have on you, your work, your team? Perhaps this broken trust, probably it did impact your clients. At the same time, anytime trust is damaged, a tremendous amount of emotional and mental energy gets wasted. Because you start avoiding that person. You spend time overthinking what to say, what not to say. You feel awful after every transaction. Maybe you start doing the work yourself so you don't have to delegate to someone whose work you just don't trust. All of this is wasted time and energy. Trust is essentially the invisible glue that holds together our relationships and the work that we do. So in today's episode, I'm sharing the ways I help my clients proactively build trust so that you can also intentionally build strong, trusting relationships with the people on your team, with your colleagues, with your senior stakeholders, and even with your clients. You'll also find two powerful tools in this episode to help you put all of this into practice. First, I'll introduce a trust framework, which was originally developed by Peter Axelson, whose name you might have heard before, which includes exercises aligned to that framework. I'll also share a valuable tool that I've developed myself, which I call the stakeholder analysis. It's a tool to help analyze and build a strategy to strengthen your most important relationships at work. Both of these tools can help you build proactively and consistently trusted work relationships for greater efficiency and impact. So, many of us believe that work relationships will develop naturally over time, like I mentioned earlier, without needing that explicit investment. Now, sometimes that happens and sometimes it doesn't. At the core of any strong working relationship, you need a basic amount of trust in and respect for each other. While there are lots of other positive attributes that make relationships work well, these two, trust and respect, are the must-haves. Everything else can be sorted out if you've got those two in place. What we often don't talk about is that trust means different things to different people. So when we say we want to build trust with someone, it's really important to be clear about what we actually mean, what each of us is looking for, and what each of us thinks about when we talk about trust. And what I've found is that most people fall into one of two buckets. One, you trust people right away until that trust is broken. Or two, you don't trust anyone until they've proven that you can trust them. So whether it's understanding how someone defines trust, how they think about it, or which of these buckets they fall into, it's incredibly useful to know where someone stands. Because most of us operate as if everyone views trust the same way I do. Okay, before we get into the framework, let's do a quick reflection exercise together. I want you to think about a colleague that you've worked with in the past who you really trusted. What caused you to trust them? What was it about that person and that relationship that built that trust? Now, you might have thought of things like they had your best interests in mind. They said what they were going to do and they followed through. You knew where you stood with them. Okay? Now, think about a colleague you did not trust. What caused you not to trust them? What did they do or what did they not do that broke your trust? Now, maybe they put their own interests ahead of the team. Maybe they took credit for work that others contributed to. Maybe things fell through the cracks and you felt like you couldn't rely on them. These experiences all point to the aspects of trust that are important to you and what you expect from others as you develop trust with them. And those very aspects of trust become important as you start to think about how you can deliberately build trust. Now, let's walk through that trust framework that I use with my clients. So there are 4 components. The first is knowing the person. This means I know the person, what is important to them, their likes and dislikes, and equally that they know me. The second is competence. I trust that the person has the skills and knowledge needed to do the work well. The third is sincerity. I trust that the person will be honest and transparent with me and will tell me what they are thinking and feeling. And then the last and fourth one is reliability. I trust that the person will do what they say they are going to do and will deliver as promised. So these are the 4 components: knowing the person, competence, sincerity, and reliability. Now, while most people agree all 4 are important, we all prioritize one of these areas more importantly than the others. So when I work with teams to proactively develop trust, I introduce this framework, and then I ask each person to write down which of these 4 trust components are most important to them. Then I ask each person around the room in the team to share which one they picked and why. So in the end, this conversation provides some really critical personal insight into what matters to each person when it comes to building trust. It also creates what I call a team trust profile. The team starts to see patterns. They start to see where there is alignment and where there are differences, which also reveals how trust shows up in the culture of that particular team. After we debrief the framework and all those team insights, I ask everyone to think about, kind of look around the room, and to think about at least one person in the room that they want to build more trust with. Now, it could be it's someone new that they've just started working with. It could be someone they've worked with for a while, but now they're partnering with them more closely on a high-stakes project. Or it could be a relationship where trust has been strained or even broken, and that trust needs to be rebuilt. So once they have that person in mind on their own, I ask them to consider which aspect of trust is important to them and which aspect of trust is important to the other person. And from there, they start crafting a conversation and an approach about how they want to develop, strengthen, or repair trust in that relationship. Then I share a few examples from each of the 4 trust components. I know the person, competence, sincerity, and reliability, to give each person a sense of how they could approach those conversations. Let me share a few. So, for example, if you want to focus on knowing the person, you might ask yourself, well, what are the top 3 to 5 things I need to know about that person to work really well with them? You also might ask about their background, their interests, or what matters to them outside of work. If competence is critical to you or your colleague, you might align on expectations. What do we each need from each other to do the work we need to do together really well? What skills are required? What do we need to support each other? If sincerity is critical, you might start by sharing what sincerity means to you and invite them to do the same. And what does sincerity look like for us to work together? Lastly, if reliability is the most important area of trust, you might discuss, well, what does follow through look like for each of you? What matters most when it comes to consistency? The goal here is to choose 1 or 2 actions that will have the most impact in that particular relationship. By the way, I don't ask them to have those conversations in the moment. What I ask them to do is actually have those conversations after the offsite. So at the end of the day, trust doesn't just magically happen or appear. It's built through deliberate action and honest conversations. Okay, so let's shift gears a bit. Building trust with the people on your team, with your direct reports, with your manager and your peers, I mean, these should be no-brainers, right? But as you advance in your leadership, you also need to expand trust beyond your sphere of influence within your organization. For example, think about a colleague you may not work with every day, but who is a critical relationship for you nonetheless. Or as you advance in your career, you're realizing that developing relationships with senior stakeholders is essential to your leadership success because they play a key role in decisions that affect your team, your priorities, and your ability to get things done. The reality is, the more senior you get, the more important it becomes to build trust across the organization horizontally, not just vertically. And those horizontal relationships, they're different. You may not work with these people every day. You don't have direct authority over them, and you can't rely on proximity to build the relationship. And many times the interactions you do have with them are high-stakes conversations. Therefore, you need to be much more deliberate because you have fewer opportunities to build trust, there is usually a lack of direct authority, and you have limited opportunity to influence their decisions or that relationship that could have a significant impact on your work. This is where the value of the stakeholder analysis comes in. This tool offers prompts to help you analyze and create a strategy to intentionally and explicitly build stronger, more trusted working relationships with the people that matter most. Okay, so this is a bit about how it works. First, the basics. There are prompts like, how long have you been working together and how influential are they in the organization? Then the tool asks you to note their working styles and preferences, things like communication and persuasion styles. What is their preferred method of solving problems? What level of detail do they typically like to see? And what is their tolerance for uncertainty, including risk, change, and ambiguity? Then, of course, there is a section in the tool for you to analyze the current trust factors in that relationship. Another critical point of analysis is this: what does this person care about? Not just what they say they care about, but what they've noticed they really care about. What matters to them? What motivates them? What do they value? For example, do they care about speed and getting things done quickly? Do they care about being seen as an expert? Are they all about the data and providing proof? Do they really care about recognition and visibility? This is called their currency. This concept comes from Alan R. Cohen, who, among other distinctions, is the author of the book Influence Without Authority. I explored this concept in some more detail this season in episode 5, called Why Your Influence is Falling Short. Another thing this tool explores is your intent. Well, what do you need from this relationship? What needs shifting in this relationship? What needs to shift? What role could they play in your success or the success of your team? For example, do you need their support on a specific initiative? Do you want them to advocate for your team? Do you want them to change how they're showing up in some way? Lastly, the tool offers prompts to help you craft a specific strategy on how to engage with this relationship differently based on all this analysis, such as identify 1 to 2 actions, could be more later on, right, that I can work on to build or influence this relationship. What would progress look like? Who can help me or provide further input or feedback? For example, do you need to come in with data and a clear point of view? Do you need to ask more questions and involve them in shaping the idea? Do you need to be more direct or take more time to build the relationship? Which currency of theirs do you need to build and influence that relationship? Proactively building trust is not a one-time exercise. It's about consistently nurturing your work relationships because they are constantly evolving along with your role, the people around you, and your context at work. So this isn't about getting it right once. It's about building habits over your career. The premise here is that building trust with your most important relationships at work is a strategic endeavor. It takes time to think and to engage. And not many people, I'm telling you, are being this deliberate. This is a leadership differentiator. If you're listening to this episode and thinking to yourself, I need to be more intentional about how I build trust, or you're thinking my team has some trust work that needs to get done, let's talk. Thank you for listening to this episode of Transformative Leadership Conversations. If you're ready to take your leadership to the next level or empower your team for success, I'm here to help. Reach out to me directly at winnie@winifred.org or visit me at www.winniedasilva.com to learn more about my work coaching executives, developing critical leadership skills, and helping organizations build effective teams. You can find me on Substack, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And remember, you're always welcome to take a seat at the table where every conversation has the potential for transformative change.